Hello, everyone. GXRCA Vlogs. You just had to pick the most complicated name in the history of the universe. Glitter Age Horse Sublong. Hello, nice to see you. Curved Fancy. Ah, hello. Very nice to see you. Yeah, I saw you. I saw you missed the last live stream. That was a shame, but you're here now. That's all that matters. Tyler. Hello. Hello. Nice to see you. I'm glad the link worked because I was having some troubles with linking initially. I think I put it wrong. I actually put a link into the description box this time. Like the last time, I actually forgot to put one in the description. Matt McLean, nicely done once again. Oh, thank you very much. Glad you enjoyed the video. I saw your comment on the last video that you you edited the Wikipedia page. That's pretty good. Yeah, there's some weird stuff on the on some of those Wikipedia articles, but of course I hope you weren't the one to write them. Well, it's always nice that you can delegate the blame to anonymous people on the internet. You can just call me Garza. All right, I'll call you Garza then. Sounds excellent. Someone revert that change almost immediately. Now I'm in an edit war. Yeah, it's why I avoid arguments on the internet. Like arguments just kind of piss me off. I don't really have a fight or flight mode. I just go full fight. Let's it's the words have to stop. Now it's time for the swords to talk, for the guns to talk. Had I lived like 300 years ago, I probably would have died in a duel. Right, so it's pretty much just gonna be like a chill stream. Like if you guys just have any questions, I'm gonna try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Kind of like the old streams. Versing said hello. Hello, nice to see you. That's why I stick to the obscure figures and avoid the famous name pages. Yeah, that's quite respectable actually. And I mean, a lot of these obscure figures are already quite ignored. And I think like a lot of the obscure figures do have pretty decent Wikipedia pages. Like I think Bartholomew Sharp's Wikipedia page is pretty good. If I remember correctly, I haven't seen it for a few years, but if I remember correctly, it kind of ignores his later story, like his later life after the Pacific Adventure. But his life after the Pacific Adventure is also kind of fragmented, so I can also understand if it's skipped. Which pages have you like written entirely yourself, McLean? I wrote the ones for Vidal / Farley, Critchett, and Bear. Oh, I actually haven't seen the Bear page. That's quite interesting. I wrote 200 plus pages. You need to find yourself a girl, mate. Yeah, I know you're a dad, so I'm just screwing around. Edit wars on pirate articles are common. Yeah, definitely. Lenomorph asked the first question of the day. Hi, unrelated question, but what kind of hat did Blackbeard wear? I don't think it was ever documented per se what kind of hat he wore. One of the things is like in these period documents, they like never describe. Most of the hats don't even have like a name. They just say hat, so we can't know for certain what type of hat it is. In period illustrations from like a general history, Blackbeard is portrayed with his first woodcut illustration. Blackbeard, it actually depicts him wearing like a fur cap, so it's like a hat lined with fur, which would have been great in the cold climates, but in the Caribbean, heat stroke. And in later woodcuts, he's wearing like a tricorn, but most of those woodcuts where he's with a tricorn, it's after the golden age of piracy. So all in all, we don't know what hat he wore. It would probably have been a tricorn or just like some sort of regular felt hat with kind of like the hat I got there in the background. It could have been one of those, probably a bit more fancy. That like the hat you got there on the pumpkin, it's just like a normal felt hat. Great material, but not very fancy. Pirates, of course, love to put feathers in their hats. Peter asked, now the most important question: how is your day? Oh, it's very good. I hope yours is good as well, Pete. Um, Tyler said, been trying to edit the Anne Bonny page to be less ass. Haven't gotten much pushback yet, but I'm doing it a paragraph at a time, spaced between 2 weeks. Yeah, just sneaking in those edits. Yeah, the page is on Rackham, and his female crewmates is it's not too good. There seems to be there's a lot of assumptions in there, like a lot of like taking general history uncritically, which you know. Rosing said, I always have a question prepared in my head, but when the stream begins, my mind goes blank. Yeah, I can relate. You can just write them down, or if you come up with something, you can just ask it. I'm gonna like I always answer like all questions. It's just a question of when. Like I always like take my time with them. But there aren't like a whole lot of people in the chat, so it's probably not going to be a whole problem. Jay Seifert. Yeah, that's the thing. Like in English, I think you guys pronounce E-I like E, but in like in my native tongue and in like German and stuff, you say I. Love you anyway. Jay Seifert said, "Love your content. You are genuine, and I, for one, am most appreciative." Thank you very much. I appreciate that you enjoy the content. It's great. Fran, the one and only, said, "I made it to another Golden Gunpowder live stream. Let's go." Yeah, nice to see you here. I'm not entirely sure if I have seen you in the comments. I think your name does sound familiar. Tyler's the Fran name does remind me of like that episode of like Courage the Cowardly Dog, where they're like he's like goes to this there's this like company who produces like flan, some sort of weird pudding, and they like hypnotize people with TV commercials. I've been here before like once. Yeah, I probably recognize you from there. Nice to see you anyway. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask them in the chat. Tyler said, okay, so the Mary Read duel is fake, but pirate duels like that were at least somewhat documented, so Captain Johnson isn't making up the concept, at least. Yeah, definitely not. Like, duels were super common. Well, in general, and there are quite a few documented pirate duels. Famously, there is one in what was it called? The Buccaneers of America, a duel that went awry. There was also Basil Ringrose, who was a buccaneer. He fought several duels personally, and it's kind of funny because like Basil was also kind of a nerd. Like he was a clerk. He spoke Latin. He was a linguist, and he was later hired by Charles Swan as a supercargo, so like a ship's merchant agent essentially. But he fought a lot of duels for whatever reason, I don't know. And he wrote it in his own journal, like, yeah, I fought a duel against the quartermaster. He doesn't say why, he refuses to elaborate, but he fought a lot of duels. It's just, but of course, like the duels, you wouldn't aim to actually kill someone in a duel. Like you were just to resolve your differences. Like, it's kind of like when two guys just go at it in a bar, like with their fists, to just get a mutual respect. It's kind of like that. I actually read somewhere recently that a lot of pistol duels, they would just like fire, they would kind of aim at someone, but they would basically just aim aside or into the ground. So when they shoot, they would totally miss. And then because, they didn't actually want to get shot and die, which is, some have argued that it's also one of the reasons why duels became unpopular, is because pistols became more effective and they got more shots, they became more accurate, and suddenly it became way too easy to hit someone, and you could actually kill someone in a duel, which wasn't really the purpose. Frogman said, I know you don't like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but do you like any other Assassin's Creed games? I never said I don't like Assassin's Creed 4. I think it's a perfectly fine game. It's not my favorite pirate game, and it's not my favorite game. it's fun enough, I guess. But what I've said is that it's not historical. It's not a historical game. Like, and this is like an important distinction. Something can be ahistorical and like unhistorical, but it can still be a good game or movie or whatever. Like these things aren't mutually exclusive. Just because I say something is like historically incorrect, it doesn't mean like it's not a good game or whatever. And it's an important distinction to make because I get a lot of hate for this, like on the Pirates of the Caribbean videos. And I said in the Pirates of the Caribbean videos, like, you know, this is just a reason to talk about history, but people still get mad because they think I'm critiquing the movie or whatever. And I say like in the video, it's not a critique; it's an analysis. A critique is supposed to raise points of improvement. And I don't care what Hollywood does about their films, and I don't care about what Ubisoft does to their games. I'm just interested in talking about history. Do I like any other Assassin's Creed games? I played like a few of them. I remember playing the second one. I played the one in Constantinople. Funny thing is, in Assassin's Creed 4, they actually reuse a lot of the like ambient boats from I think Revelations and 2. So you have like Mediterranean boats in the Caribbean, which is it's just lazy. I mean, the four Assassin's Creed 4 is pretty fun. I played a bunch of the third one when it came out, but I mean, the fourth is basically just an improved mod of Assassin's Creed 3. Um, Black Flag calling sloops gunboats hurts me. Uh, yeah, I guess they could be considered sloops. They don't have bowsprits. They have like the bowsprit replaced with a cannon instead. And gunboats, what they if you wanted to do an actual gunboat from the 18th century, it would be a rowboat, sometimes with like a square rigged, a single mast or whatever, which could usually be felled. A sloop would pretty much never be a gunboat. The fishing boats in Assassin's Creed 4 are actually quite accurate. They're pretty much just like regular sloops. I'm more frustrated by them calling the gunboats cutters. Like the crewmen, when they spot a gunboat, they call it a cutter, and cutter as a word did not exist in the early 18th century. It's like late 18th century, mid 18th century. Um, so yeah, and also of course, like as I said, you just because like a game isn't unhistorical, it shouldn't prevent you from like enjoying it and thinking it's fun. If you like it, you like it. Jay Seifert said, and thank you for pronouncing my name properly. It is 100% German, Cologne, but my ancestors immigrated in the late 1700s to the USA. Oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I speak a bit of German, but my German is horrible, much to the array of my German friends and Austrian friends, for that matter. Fran asked, why is Mary Read so famous anyway? Why do people find her interesting other than the reason of her being female? So Mary Read isn't really famous anymore compared to Anne Bonny. Anne Bonny has pretty much stolen the spotlight. Mary was more famous and popular in the 19th century, and Anne kind of stole the spotlight in the 20th. And the reason why both of them are popular is just, I mean, they pretty much they were the only part women. They seem to have been pretty aggressive and active, and of course because Charles Johnson, he invented pretty much new backstories for them where they did more exciting and quite dramatic stuff. Like, of course, Mary does have the better backstory in the general history, but of course, like I said in the video, it's stolen, plagiarized. But I mean, most people don't notice it. Like when I read a general history first a few years ago, I thought it was true as well. Um, so I guess that's why. I think it's more so that they kind of like. It's a shame that they don't really get portrayed in an interesting way. Like nowadays, you usually have like Mary Read and Anne Bonny always portrayed in like the same way all the time, and it's a shame. It would be nice to see something new. Tyler said Basil sounds like the accountant guy from Black Sails. Tough nerd. Um, I think you're speaking about the guy. He's called like Dufresne, if I remember correctly. And I think he like becomes the quartermaster. Yeah, I guess kind of maybe. I always imagined Basil as having spectacles, so like glasses. Uh, Beer MD asked, "How reliable are the historical sources of pirates and piracy (within parentheses culture, piracy culture) compared to different historical ages, and how difficult is it to determine their reliability slash truthfulness?" Um, it's a good question. It's very interesting. I'm not sure what you mean by piracy within parentheses culture, but regarding on the reliability of historical sources, um, and of course, it's the thing with history is like you're never gonna know for 100% what is true. But that's the case with all information sources, even like news today. It is easy to manipulate unless if we could literally go there and see what happened in any incident, even like 5 minutes ago. I mean, the truth is like infinitely malleable. Um, so you always have to take it with a grain of salt and kind of discuss it like, yeah, this is what we know, so we can assume this is what happened more or less. But when you look at a source, you have to look at like how are the sentences phrased. How is the author describing something? What happened? Are they accusing someone? Are they describing something negatively? And you have to look at the author themselves. What is their occupation? What are their attitudes? What is their religion? What is their background? For example, Englishmen in the 16th century, for example, they would be very negative towards the Spanish, and vice versa. So they wouldn't maybe say the most positive things about the Spanish. Um, and there's also, if you look at something like a general history of the pirates, what is the purpose of a general history of the pirates? It's a book that is meant to sell and make copies. So it's, maybe it makes it less reliable than say trial documents. The purpose of the trial documents is simply to record what happened during the trial and to put the criminals on to sentence the criminals. Um, the most reliable historical source would of course be archaeology, because archaeology, uh, I mean, it's just remnants, it doesn't lie. Of course, archaeology is often incomplete, and it often leads to guesswork, but uh, yeah. Tyler said something regarding reliability. It's rough. If you see a book from the past century and it doesn't have a citation, be wary. Uh, yeah, it's more so like talking about like period sources from this time. And yeah, it is definitely tough, but you have to take it with a pinch of salt and pretty much always think like, yeah, this is what we have to work with. So we can assume, but we can also look at who wrote it and why. It is definitely complicated. It's kind of hard to explain, but if there's something which is unclear, you can always ask me. But perfectly, what you should do when you research something, you shouldn't rely on a single source. Uh, you should look at several sources, and preferably different types of sources. So, for example, you can use archaeological sources together with written sources. For example, in A General History, Charles Johnson wrote that pirates would take a pistol and they would, I can show you my pistol, they would tie a silk sling around the handle and they would keep it like slung around this. Um, and a lot of historians like speculated for a while if this was true or not. And then when they excavated the wreck of the Wider Galley, they found archaeological remnants of pistols being kept in that manner. So then we have an example of archaeological proving the written, and both of these sources complementing each other. But of course, you can have multiple written sources also that complement each other, and preferably you can have written sources which are written by people with different attitudes that still complement each other. But then it becomes complicated when you have several sources which sometimes share an attitude or sometimes which have conflicting attitudes which disagree and add new details, you know. And that often becomes a problem in like period journals, which is like what people would have written about themselves. Um, anyway, it's a complicated topic, definitely. If there's anything more you'd like to know, you just ask it, and I'll see if I can elaborate. Snake Plissken said, apart from Golden Age of piracy and Baltic history, what are your favorite periods of history? Um, I mean, I do actually kind of like the Stone Age and Bronze Age quite a lot. I would say like the Bronze Age might actually be my favorite historical period, like overall. But I also like the Stone Age. Uh, yeah, but I mean, in general, I like most of the. I mean, there's so many periods I do like. Like I do like the 1400s, for example. I like the 16th century quite a lot as well. Versing asked how important and popular the pirate round was, or it wasn't very used. Oh, the pirate round, of course, for those of you who don't know, is when pirates would sail from the 13 colonies, so like New York and Bermuda and stuff. They would round Africa, the Cape of Good Hope, uh, base themselves in Madagascar, and from Madagascar go to the Red Sea and steal from mostly Indian Muslim pilgrim ships. And it became mostly popular in the late 17th century, and it was very popular. And these pirates probably the pirates who were in the pirate round probably were the richest pirates of the entire golden age. But they were since they became so rich, they caused a lot of trouble. Uh, so they were kind of put out of order quite quickly, and people went after them. But there were like sort of pirate rounds every now and then. Like there were pirates before them who kind of did the pirate round, and there were pirates after who kind of revived the pirate round in the 1720s. So it was used for short bursts of time, like a few years at a time, essentially. But they were very successful. Um, Peter asked, "Have you heard of an indie game, A Pirate Quartermaster? It's a micromanagement game about a pirate ship. The game maker took great inspiration from the real piracy of the Golden Age." Yeah, I've heard about it. I think as I've seen the Steam page and I checked it out a bit. I haven't played it. It doesn't like it doesn't look like anything that interests me purely because like it's like a fantasy game, and it had some like I wasn't really a fan of the aesthetics pretty much. Jay Seifert asked, "I have a photo I'd like you to see, a video as well. How may I send it to you?" Um, you can do it in whichever way is convenient for you. Like you can send it on email. If you go to my channel page, you'll find my email address there. You have to do like a captcha. You can also send it on Discord. You'll find an invite link to the Discord server, and you can find me in the Discord server in the video description of like the stream. So whichever way is most comfortable to you. Flamer 184 asked, "I just joined and I love your outfit so much." Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Nicholas, okay, this is a Polish name, and I don't speak Polish, so probably gonna butcher your name. Radzikiewicz. Radzikiewicz. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Would you be interested in talking about the game Trade Winds 2 at some point? Never heard about it. Lady Tyler asked, "We all have interest in multiple eras." Yeah, definitely. Robert asked, "Do you collect anything from the pirate era, coins, etc.?" Well, I mean, I do have this pistol. This is like an antique. It's not from the pirate age. It's from like late 18th century, and I will try to acquire more antiques if I can. And there are some I have my eyes on, but I mean, this one it wasn't super expensive, but like it's not something you buy every month. It's like once every year, like a treat for yourself. So I will try to buy more of these. So I guess you could call me a would-be antique weapons collector. And I mean, I'll acquire anything which is of interest. You know, if I would find some coins or whatever, I'd probably get them. Uh, Sagisaurus said, "Yeah, Breshke, yeah, sure." Tyler said, "I know there are differences between 1770s era pistols and 1710s era pistols, but I'll be damned if I know the difference." Yeah, I'm not really too invested in the pistol in like the differences. There are some internal differences with the locks, but they're like the Most people like don't even understand like how a flintlock works like internally, and you know, but I'm not sure how the internal differences were different in like the early and late 18th century. Of course, there were also like dog locks, which had like an external lock kind of. Psychosaurus said, "No idea why I'm subbed to the channel. Must have been a super good video I watched. All of my videos are super good, so it could have been any one of them." Bear MD said, "Now you need a gun sling." Um, I mean, I do have it like tucked. I can show it to you. So I do have it like I have a belt here. So I have it like just tucked in a belt, and it works. It works perfectly fine. The belt is kind of tight enough, so you can like you can do some jumping. Yeah. Okay, see if I can tighten the belt. Like yeah, I can do some do a bit of jumping there, like pull it out. You know, it works fine. If you see here, it's got like I don't know if I can show it. It's got like a hook here. Well, not a hook, like a screw, which is attaching the lock. And this like screw kind of attaches itself to the belt, like a bit of a hook. And interestingly enough, they would use this kind of screw for attachments. So you could have like a belt hook, which is like a scrap of metal which hooks goes down like this, and kind of like I don't know, like I have a letter opener here. So the belt hook would go like this and attach itself to your belt. Um, and there's also like another modification I've seen. I think it's modern. It's like a pan cover, which it's like the pan cover. It goes like kind of like this over the gun, like my hand, and it's supposed to protect your eyes when you're aiming from the sparks from the frisson. Are we going to see a sword to go with that pistol? Yeah, I want to get a cutlass at some point, but I don't know if I'm gonna get like a replica or something. We'll see. We'll see. The replicas of like pirate era pistols tend to be pretty good, and they're also like relatively cheap. But I think they're all produced in the U.S., so I would have to look into the exports and imports. Uh, Snake Plissken asked, "Did pirates lean Whig or Tory? Blackbeard and Steen bonnets were Jacobites, so they must have been Tories." Yeah, most pirates were opposed to Parliament, and Parliament at the time was quite Whig. It's like you said with the Jacobites, a lot of them seem to have been Tory leaning, but um, I don't think they talked much. They didn't talk too much about their politics. It's hard to say. Brian Cooney said, "Bro, you're a beast." No, I'm a civilized grown man. Um, Psychosaur said, of course, the What Media Gets Right video. Yeah, that video has actually been quite popular, and I think it's also quite different from like most of these like videos on YouTube about pirate media. Most of them focus on what media gets wrong, and I made one of those videos myself, but it was mostly the contrast to what media gets right. I thought it was interesting to provide something new to the discussion, essentially. Crew of the Fancy said, Pistol get annoying, especially since some of the Golden Age of Pirates era pistol types were simply modernized with little bits such as bands or grip shape." Uh, yeah, you can definitely see like if you look at like how pistols developed, they definitely made them more ergonomic over time. And like this one is incredibly ergonomic. Like this like handle just fits perfectly into my palm. And also you have like this. Of course, like earlier pistols would have had this like butt here as well, which it functions partly as a club, but also as like a counterbalance for aiming. Because like if you wouldn't have a counterbalance, the pistol would kind of like go down like this with the weight. So it makes it easier to aim essentially. Friend one and only asked, "Did pirates get their teeth replaced with golden or silver ones? I keep seeing images of pirate with one or two golden teeth, but is it historically accurate?" Um, it definitely like these sorts of I think these existed in the period. I'm not an expert on this, but I don't to my recollection I don't know if any pirates that had were described as having gold or silver teeth, and I don't know how popular it was in the period either. So sadly, I cannot answer your question with certainty. Bear MD said, opposed to flintlock pistols, have you ever heard of wheellock pistols being used on sea in the period? Um, so wheellocks they were definitely used in the 17th century, but they got by the, I think by the late 18th, no, by the early 18th and like late 17th, they were largely replaced by flintlocks. There are examples of wheellocks that were made in the 18th century, but it must be considered that the wheellock is it's more reliable than a flintlock, but it takes longer to load. It's more complicated and it's more expensive. So, and most parts, well, most people just couldn't have afforded it, or it wouldn't have been worth it compared to a flintlock, which is just cheaper. Uh, which means the wheellock pistol wasn't like very popular in the first place among anyone but like knights and officers. The flintlock pistol was kind of a pistol revolution because it made the pistol more available, whereas before the flintlock pistol, pistols were only really a thing used by aristocrats and cavalrymen, which usually were some sort of landowner. Peter said, my cat sat beside me and sends his regards to you. I hope at least. Yeah, it's impossible to know what cats are thinking. Tyler asked, did the class a pirate came from tend to influence how they acted as pirates? Edward Lowe was poor and cruel, but Bonnet was rich and not as cruel. That's very interesting, and I've heard some people argue for what you're saying, that aristocrats would usually abide by more of a sort of moral code of conduct, which of course was kind of how they operated sometimes in war, like they would be respectful to some degree. And you can see like a lot of these pirates who have purported aristocratic backgrounds behave in a more civilized manner, like Bonnet, also Blackbeard, if Blackbeard was an aristocrat. But you also have like low-born pirates who behave in a civilized manner, like Bellamy. Bellamy was quite merciful, definitely one of the most merciful pirates. And you also have, of course, aristocrats, especially in the 1600s, who behaved vehemently. And even in the 1700s, like Henry Jennings was, I mean, he's probably the most aristocratic pirates, and he was a complete asshole. And also in the 1600s, you have like, of course, a lot of buccaneer aristocrats who behaved, just vehemently. There is, of course, a lot of debate on Morgan, if Morgan was a bad boy or a good boy. Different sources disagree. But you also have someone like Chevalier Gramont, who I think was aristocrat. I'm not sure, who wasn't really a nice guy. And of course, it's the kind of like attitudes towards class and such were different in the period, and conceptions of honor. It's hard to say. Versing said, I need to leave now, but I just remembered another thing. Were there any Brazilian pirates in the Caribbean? I'm a Brazilian, and I was very mad after I found out that Rock Brasiliano is Brazilian. Yeah, he was a Dutchman who lived in Brazil. As far as I know, I mean, in general, there weren't a lot of Portuguese active in the Caribbean, and as I think there were a few Portuguese who lived on Jamaica, but overall, not a lot of Portuguese active in the scene. Pirates did steal from the Portuguese and Brazilians at some points, and they also sold slaves quite a lot to Brazilians. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't have any names or examples of like Brazilians or Portuguese being part of crews, sadly. Flavor 184 asked, do you have any interest in the Napoleonic Wars or colonial expansion / history? I'm not sure what you mean with colonial expansion / history. There have been a lot of colonial expansions in history, so which one? In regards to the Napoleonic Wars, my interest is quite limited. I think they're quite, a lot of they're not really obscure, and I kind of prefer more obscure stuff. Versing said, also, sorry for my bad English. It's nothing to apologize for. It doesn't matter. If I can understand what you're saying, it's what matters. Sakisaurus said, "When you only have one shot, do not miss your chance to go." No, um, it becomes increasingly important to have a good melee option in the same weapon or a sword. Yeah, pistols were, of course, they should be considered a sort of auxiliary to melee weapons. Like you wouldn't go into battle with only pistols. You would have like a cutlass and a pistol. And a pistol is really just an aid to your melee capabilities. And even for muskets, also muskets would be used in melee quite a lot. Like you would fire a shot and then you would flip it over and use it like a club. And a lot of muskets in the 1600s, especially, they had like the stock of the musket, the butt, kind of shaped like an axe, and it would be heavier, so it would be better for bashing heads in, as it were. And even today, at least when I was in the army, we received quite a lot of melee training actually, but also because we were supposed to do a lot of guard duty, and someone might just be nice 1 minute and then like just try to grab your weapon or whatever. So you need to know how to use your gun in melee. Uh, and even if you don't use like the butt of your gun, the barrel of the barrel of a musket or a modern rifle is very effective as a weapon. Modern rifles have these what are they called in English? Uh, like you have like a muzzle edition, like a silencer is a type of, or a suppressor, I guess, is a muzzle edition. But you have these like most common, you have these muzzle editions which dampen the flame. So like they dampen the muzzle flash. And those have like spikes on them and they're kind of sharp. So if you stab someone, if you like jab someone in their forehead, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna knock them out. And of course, you also had bayonets in the 18th century, but they don't seem to have been very popular at sea. And for most of the pirate age, you had didn't have like the bayonets attached to the gun. You had plug bayonets, which were inserted into the gun itself, which means you couldn't shoot. Edward McCormick Cook said muzzle brake or flash suppressor. Yeah, exactly. There we go. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with English military terminology, since I wasn't in the English or American army. I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm the one they hunted. Snake Plissken said Henry Pittman, who fought in the Whig Monmouth Rebellion and was enslaved, and met pirates who congratulated them for their action, but that was in the 1680s, so I don't know how much it changed over the years. Yeah, that's a pretty good example. And he was also, I think he was also pardoned, and all of the others who participated in the Monmouth Rebellion, they were pardoned with the Glorious Revolution when Dutch Billy came to power, or William III, I guess you can call him. And of course, the Jacobites opposed William III. So yeah, I guess there were probably quite a few pirates who were Whigs as well, but they very rarely wrote about it. Matt McLean said Portuguese pirate in the Golden Age, Simon Mascarino, served the Spanish as a guarda costa, but was known to be a pirate. Yeah, that's pretty much all the guarda costa. They were pretty much pirates, but the distinction between pirate and privateer and like coast guard and pirate always obscure in this period. Sakisaur said that really reminds me of the Russian splitter axe plus pistol combo. The axe head hell weight helps with the recoil too. Yeah, definitely, and it's the same like principle with like this pistol you have. Well, it should be mentioned that like for like a muzzle loader, it's not so much the recoil, it's more so the stability of the gun, because like recoil is only really important if you have recoil management is only really important if you have a repeating firearm, because you want to shoot and then you want to get your sights on the target again. But if you have a muzzle loader, you shoot it once and then you have to reload. Of course, like if if the recoil kills you, well, bruises you or whatever, that's like a different question. But recoil management isn't as much of a problem with muzzle loaders. It's more so like keeping the gun stable when you're actually aiming it. Like you want to keep it as stable as possible, of course, so you stay on target. And there are, of course, some things which can destabilize your aim, like the lock or well, the hammer falling against the lock, for example, that can destabilize your aim. So it helps having some sort of like rear counterweight, like the handle or the axe weight, like you mentioned. And there were, of course, those like there are other types of like combined melee gun weapons, like there is like from the Swedish Navy. We actually have some findings of well, some museum examples of axe pistols, which are like it's kind of like a carbine. I think it has like an axe on the muzzle, near the muzzle, so kind of like a bayonet, but it's shot instead of stab. I think we have posted pictures of it in the Discord server, so you can look it up. Snake Plissken said, thoughts on the border reavers. When I first read your comment, I actually thought you were talking about like some sort of dog breed, but now that if I remember correctly, the border reavers were these like cavalry raiders from like Scotland, I think, who were active in the borderland between England and Scotland. And I do have one of the Osprey books about them. I haven't read it, so I don't know a lot about these guys. But I do kind of like these like border conflicts and like territorial frontier conflicts. So it seems very interesting, but I don't know much about them, sadly. Tyler said, speaking of axes, wonder why axes appear on the Mary Read and Anne Bonny drawings. Seems random. It's an interesting point of discussion. Of course, axes were common shipboard tools. You could also use them in combat, and they were used in boarding combat, but in boarding combat, they were more so a tool for like hacking down planks and doors and bulkheads and stuff. It also seems like I'm also interested in like the role the axe fulfilled in combat during the 18th century, because I've seen mentions of grenadiers being equipped with axes in addition to muskets and grenades. I'm not sure what the grenadiers would use their axe with, but grenadiers were also, they were selected from among the biggest and bulkiest and strongest guys. So if you give one of these guys an axe, they would be really good for like chopping down doors and using the axe as a tool. So maybe the axe just was a tool, or it had some combat purpose. I don't know, or maybe it's connected with the Anne Bonny and Mary Read pictures. Bear MD asked, "Have you ever shot a black powder / flintlock?" I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I'm definitely like I'm working on it. Let's just say. The axe pistol combination is not like the pistol. The axe head is on the nose. Is not the axe head is on the nose. Oh yeah, exactly. The crew of the fancy said many colonial militias also had an axe as an option instead of bayonets or hanger. Yeah, that's very true as well. And axes do appear in in the 17th century in regular like soldiers' equipment as well. Like during the 30 Years' War, there were quite a lot of soldiers who used axes. And of course, like even cutlasses could be used as a sort of tool. Like especially, you always see like in like movies when they're going through like a jungle or vegetation and just hacking their way through. And of course, a lot of pirates, including Anne Bonny and Mary Read, were described as using machetes, and the machete is a tool. Is a tool for hacking sugarcane and vegetation. So maybe some preferred to use the axe for the same purpose, like it could function both as a tool and a weapon. And you can also use an axe as a hammer if you need to nail something or someone. See if we get any more questions in the chat. Otherwise, I might round down the stream, because I usually tend to hold these streams for about an hour or so, and it's been like 45 minutes, pretty much exactly. So I might wind down a bit. Tyler said, although it could be witnesses mixed up a cutlass with a machete. Yeah, it's definitely possible. The one who described the machete, I think it was Dorothy Thomas. And, she was, a woman in a canoe. I don't know if she was too well versed in naval combat of the period. Fran, the one and only, asked, "Did elderly pirates exist? If they hadn't retired, what would be their roles on the ship?" Yeah, there are quite a lot of mentions of elderly pirates, or a few at least. Uh, there were quite a few old buccaneers, and it seems they just performed the same duties as everyone else. Well, if you're talking about sailing, older people wouldn't. Uh, well, if you're sailing on a ship, if you're just a regular foremastman, if you're just a regular sailor, you handle the rigging and do the duties across the ship. You're not like an officer or a specialist. Then you're either pretty much a topmastman, or I don't know what they're called, like the sailors who handle the rigging from the lower deck, where the rigging can be manipulated. And the topmastmen, they have to climb high up into the masts and pretty much set the higher yards and the higher sails. And of course, since they have to climb a lot, they have to be spry and have young limbs. So it was usually the shorter people, the lighter people, and the younger people. So older men, older persons would have worked during sailing. They would have worked the lower rigging. And during combat, it seems like the older buccaneers were valued in combat just like everyone else. Um, Aside of that, there's a lot of evidence pointing to Benjamin Hornigold being an older gentleman, and he was a captain, of course. And I imagine that like a lot of uh, older pirates were valued for their knowledge. It also depends on how you define elderly. Um, One of the buccaneers, um, who I primarily use as my reference point, he died in the 1680s. He was basically too tired to run away from the Spanish, and he was left behind and got killed. Made like a last stand. He was described as having fought in the English Civil War, if I remember correctly. So he would have been very old, like you know, above 60, something like that. Um, Crew of the Fans has said several accounts do use machete interchangeably with cutlass. The linguistics with hangers, cutlasses, etc. gets crazy. Yeah, that's definitely true. But it's worth to. But I think it's and of course it's often hard to distinguish between these weapons as well, and especially since they might have fulfilled multiple purposes. But I think it's worth it to take pretty much all of it into account. Sakisaurus said, "What do you think about these South American monkeys that have connection to the African monkeys? Apparently, we have sailed the seas a few million years ago." Uh, I haven't heard about it, but I mean, as far as I know, there have been like, of course, the continents have been connected. There have also been like land bridges, so maybe there have been crossings in that way. But of course, you can make like interoceanic crossings with quite rudimentary sailing technology. The best example would be the Maori people, if I remember correctly, like the native inhabitants of Hawaii and stuff. And the other like Pacific Islanders seem very proficient at crossing long oceanic distances in quite simple boats, like simple as in they're not like a huge sail ship that can, it's kind of easy to survive in, I guess. Um, so there is definitely a possibility of like even after the continents separating, or like even after the land bridges disappeared, of people bringing monkeys aboard. It sounds interesting. I don't know anything about it. Tyler said, "Really? So Black Sails Hornigold is maybe closer than Black Flag Hornigold?" Yeah, I think so. I do have a video on Hornigold, and in like the thumbnail and a few of the clips, I do use the Black Sails image because I think it's more accurate. And I talked to Bayless Brooks about it, and he's the one who's most inclined to the idea of Hornigold being an older gentleman, owing to the research he has found. So I would recommend looking into Bayless research on Hornigold if you're interested. Sakasor said, yeah, like the oceanic peoples. They used trade winds and crossed the Atlantic on the driftwood. All right. As I said, I uh, don't know much about it. It sounds interesting. Gars of Logs asked or said, did pirates know how to ride horses like shown in Black Sails, Flint, Hornigold, etc.? Um, yeah, there's like this one pirate. There's actually two brothers who are pirates who were captured, and they were described as having in their inventory they had riding equipment. So they had part of a saddle, they had spurs, and they had riding boots. Maybe they took this as plunder to be sold from someone who had it, or maybe when they planned on going ashore, they would actually ride horses themselves, for because it was a convenient means of transport. There are also a few incidents of pirates, very few incidents, but there was this buccaneer commander called Chevalier Gramont, who was, I mean, he was a tactical genius pretty much. And sometimes when he captured Spanish cities, he would take the local horses and he would organize cavalry units, usually of like only 100 men or 500 men, somewhere around that. And he would take these like buccaneer cavalry units and go out into the nearby countryside to catch stragglers, to loot countryside farms, stuff like that. And this is of course evidence of at least a few buccaneers being able to ride horses. Of course, when these buccaneer cavalry units engaged Spanish riders in melee or in fights, they would they would usually get defeated. So, I mean, they were primarily land soldiers. They were primarily sailors. So even if they knew how to ride horses, they wouldn't be as good horse soldiers as dedicated Spanish dragoons. And of course, Spanish cavalry units were pretty much the most efficient military force they had in the colonies. Um, can't wait for Bayless to say Hornigold is like modern American politicians. I don't think he ever did it. Um, as far as I remember, most of the info I got on Hornigold came from Dictionary of Pirate Biography, and Dictionary of Pirate Biography is like it's probably Bayless' most scholarly work. It's basically just him assembling period sources, like period accounts, and saying, "Yeah, these are the accounts which talk about these parts." And he doesn't like have any like analysis or whatever. It's just compilation of information. So it's like it's a solid book. I have it. Just jump to someone we're researching. Yeah, it's a very convenient book. It's like very helpful to use. All right. Yeah, let's see if we get any more questions. Otherwise, I will wind down the stream. Also, crew of the fancy. Are you like Donald? Are you like suing at the moment? Because I know you like you told me that you tend to do some tailoring while you watch the videos. Yep. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, I kind of want to get into it. Like when I tend to watch movies with my friends, I get a bit bored just like sitting. Got a coat for a new crew member. Impressive. Sounds pretty cool. What kind of coat? There are multiple types of coats. Just a waistcoat. You should make some calico clothes. I would love to see that. Because of course calico wasn't popular in the 18th century, but in the late 17th century, the Red Sea pirates who returned to the 13 colonies, so the crew of the fancy, they would they were described as wearing calico clothes, and of course giving calico and calico clothes to their loved ones or would be loved ones. So that would be awesome to see. Uh, I did make a calico waistcoat, but sold it. I would love to see pictures of it if you have it. Sounds awesome. It would be a pretty cool, like if you do like if you decide to get dressed as like a pirate on land, to have like a calico suit, a wig, and then like Guess you could have a feathered hat as well. Why not? And have like a cane or something. That would be pretty cool. Um, GHY9 asked, how is it going, big guy? It's going pretty good. I hope it's going good for you as well. But we're pretty much winding down the stream. Not too much activity going on, and it's been about an hour. All right. Uh, I sometimes use African fabric for my neckcloth when I do full pirate round pirate. Okay, you say African, but Africa is a big place. Do you mean like East African or like Madagascar or something, or West African even? Fran asked, "What were some common punishments among pirates apart from walking the plank or keel hauling?" They wouldn't do either of those. Those punishments are like heavily associated with pirates. Um, but like pirates never did them. They were pretty much just too complicated and bombastic. I have a video about pirate torture, which includes the punishments they would have used. So I'm gonna paste it in the comment section so you can check it out. Peter said, "Not a question, just a random thought. I play your live streams while drawing, making art, and getting to know something new. You know me. There we go. And they get the double chin wink emoji. That's great. Yeah, well, I'm glad, Pete. I'm glad that you enjoy. Also cool that you're making some cool stuff. I used to draw a lot when I was like watching movies and stuff, but I can't really do it nowadays. It's just I need to put more focus into it. Tom Brazel asked, "Did you at one point have a video on Samuel Bellamy?" No, I never made any videos on Samuel Bellamy. Rebral Hunter asked, "Is this a new thing you're doing for all your new videos, where you have a stream before it goes live?" I have a stream after the video goes live. So like right after the video premiere, I do a live stream. So if people have like questions after the video, after they watch it, they can just ask whatever. There were several attempts by the Dutch to export cotton to Africa in exchange for various fabric types, such as mud cloth, in an attempt to create a craze like calico had. Export cloths to cotton to Africa. I know that the French actually did this. The guy who owned the Queen Anne's Revenge, so before she became the Queen Anne's Revenge, when she was still called La Concorde, he owned a factory in Nantes, or I'm not sure if it's pronounced Non or Nantes. Anyway, he produced a factory which produced knockoffs, cotton knockoffs of calico cloth and stuff. And these cloths he used La Concorde to transport it to Africa, where they exchanged these knockoff cloths for slaves and other local produce. GHY9 asked, "I have a question. Would there be a special room where guns and other weapons would be stored, or would they be kept on their person?" It's a good question. I know there was a room aboard the ship called the gun room. I'm not sure how often they would keep actual like small arms in it. I think there would also be there was also an armory aboard the ships. And of course, on board merchant and navy ships, you would have the weapons locked up to prevent the crew from mutinying, of course, mutineering. And the weapons could be kept in like the fore of the ship. It was common also to keep it in like the officers' cabins because the officers can be trusted with the weapons. Pirates were a bit different. Pirates, compared to navy and merchant sailors, they owned their own private weapons, so they would have kept it on their person, as you said. But when working a ship, it's probably quite annoying to like climb around with a musket, especially. So I imagine they might have they might have kept their weapons in like an armory, or it's also likely they kept their weapons in or around their sea chest. I'm not entirely sure where a pirate kept his belongings. I presume his sea chest was kept like under his hammock or in like the sleeping quarters, or maybe in the hold. I'm sure there's someone who knows it better than me. Just some dude said, "Hey, my dude." Yeah, hello, man. Nice to see you. River Hunter said, "Cool. Didn't know you did streams until now. I always have missed them." Yeah, well, you can catch them in the future, and you can also watch the old ones. They're available. It's just that they're not live. But yeah, I try to do live streams after video premieres, and of course I do video premieres every Friday every week, except the last week of the month on yeah, I don't know which time zone you live in, so I cannot say. Tom Brassel said, I remember at one point I think you said you planned to make a video about pirate retirement. Is that still in the works if it ever was? Uh, I have a lot of video scripts and I have more video ideas. So it's not a question of it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, always. And it's also like prioritizing. Some videos I prioritize over other videos, and it's mostly about what videos I think there's a necessity to be released, and also which videos I think will get the most views. Bear MD said, "Have you seen The Bounty from 1984? Not the Piracy period, but fascinating too." Yeah, I've seen it. It's a great movie. Uh, it features a lot of swivel guns aboard the ship, which I appreciate. Radco Uranium Mining Company. Okay. Do you have any proof of a falsified letter of marque? Also, love hearing your live stream while building some classic Lego and Lego Pirates and Ports. That is cool. Um, uh, falsified letters of marque. They wouldn't be like a falsified letter of marque or like privateering commission in the sense that you would like create one from the ground up. Usually you would take an existing one and then like modify it, like change the name to your name. Or you could even buy blank commissions where you could just add your own name to it. This was especially common in the French colonies. Uh, and normally you wouldn't have a falsified letter of marque as much as you would have like you would have different permissions, like a permission to go and fish and hunt, and you would say, "Oh, it says that I can defend myself, and by defending myself, it means I'm allowed to attack Spanish ships," stuff like that. I have a whole video about the letter of marque and privateering commissions, which goes into this stuff in a lot of detail. So you can find it on the channel if you just search like golden gunpowder letter of marque, and hopefully that'll answer your question quite thoroughly. Dex Shed asked, "Sorry for the personal question. I'm from Jamaica. Where are you from?" I'm from Sweden. Snake Pliskin asked, and I think I'll make this one the last question before I'll drop out for today. Where did the trope of pirates wearing big cavalry boots come from, despite them mostly going barefoot aboard ship? Howard Pyle or earlier? I think aboard ships they would mostly have worn shoes to avoid chafing their feet in the ropes and stuff. But barefoot was very common on land, actually. And the trope about them wearing big cavalry boots. So these, a sort of boots similar to it, were a sort of fashion statement in the mid to early 1600s. So they do appear on paintings from, as I said, the early 1600s mostly. So it might have been they come from there. There are also quite a lot of depictions where it looks like pirates are wearing boots, but mostly they are wearing like folded socks, a type of heavy folded socks, which were also a fashion statement, which have been interpreted as these sort of cuffed boots quite a lot. So largely, yeah, I think like the boots mostly come from 19th century artists like how Howard Pyle, like you said, sort of misinterpreting period paintings and period illustrations and stuff. Um, it's hard to say. I hope I was able to answer your question at least to a certain degree. Okay, Tyler asked. Okay, I'll make this the final question. Now people are gonna drop in like 10 questions. we can take it the next time. Last question: was it common for merchants to just capture pirates without the letter of marque, like what Barnett did? If I remember correctly, I personally don't have the details about Barnett's commission. his ship was heavily equipped. There were a lot of like people kind of give John Rackham a lot of flack for surrendering. John Rackham had 18 guys aboard his ship, and Barnett had like, I don't know. I think someone said it was up to like 100. It was something somewhere between like 50 and 100. And that is a lot of guys. And his ship was heavily armed. His sloop was heavily armed, and there were two sloops. He was also accompanied. He was also accompanied by Bonnevie. So they were sailing in concert. They had a lot of men, and they were heavily equipped. Uh, he had a commission and had been a privateer, but by 1720 the commission had expired. Yeah, so he might have had like a second commission. And even if you went trading, you would usually have like a trading commission, and trading commissions would often be accompanied by letters of marque. Letters of marque are not privateering commission. Having a letter of marque does not make you a privateer. Letter of marque is it gives you the especially during wartime, it gives you the legal right to capture enemy ships if you get the chance. So maybe his trading commission also authorized him to capture pirates, and maybe his commission had dual purposes. So it was both supposed to capture pirates and to trade. And these kind of commissions were common as well, where you would say like, yeah, we're supposed to trade, we're supposed to like Woodes Rogers, for example, his privateering commission said, yeah, you go to the Spanish Pacific, you take French and Spanish ships, but you also establish trade with the local Spanish colonies. So these sort of commissions were quite common. Anyway, again, if you want to know more about these sort of commissions, I recommend the letter of marque video. It's quite thorough in this. And it also like explains the distinction between privateering commissions and letters of marque, because the distinction is important because there is like a strong difference. Anyway, that's gonna be it for the stream tonight. Or today if you're in the Americas or on the other side of the world. Hopefully we can do another stream like next week in the Anne Bonny video release. Maybe we can also like I will also try to diversify the streams in the future. Like maybe do some like play some like Assassin's Creed or Sid Meier's Pirates or whatever. But we'll see if I can get it to work. Otherwise, we'll just continue these sorts of questions and answers streams. Anyway, glad you came, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sailor Centris ad, just wanted to say hello. Your videos are wonderful. Thank you for watching them. Thank you for enjoying. And hope you have a good day and evening and whatever. So I'll see you guys next week.